morning, Manju, and good morning to everyone. So, great pleasure to introduce Manju, and Manju's going to dance the dance of happiness. But before that, she wants to talk a little bit to you and tell you about the dance.
Thank you, Sally. Um, so the idea of this dance came when it was the lockdown situation early in April, and I had holidays from work, and I was at home, and the whole world was in lockdown, and that's the time when the 10 a.m. talks had actually started, and I personally was taking a lot of benefit from these talks, and I really wanted to come here and do something in this program, and it was also the feeling of being at home and being protected by God's love to the extent that I felt I wanted to go out of the country for a holiday, but due to lockdown, I couldn't go. So I felt He had protected me, and I was absolutely fine, safe and sound at home, which was most comfortable place and safest place to be in. And that's the feelings that came from the song too. I felt I was unconscious, and He had breathed life into me, and I think you will see the emotions coming out while I do the dance. But yeah, that was a little bit of background why I chose this particular music and all the emotions I had that time and I still carry. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're looking forward to the dance.
Was lost, but you found me. Hiding in the shadows from my destiny. And you saw things that no one else could see. You saved me when I was my worst enemy. It feels so good to be alive, just you and me tonight. To wake me up from this high, what a beautiful life. I heard your heart call mine, and then all the stars aligned. To wake me up from this high, what a beautiful life. Spread me like a wild flame, I feel it in my veins. I'll never ever be the same, I'll never be the same. Just the thing that can't buy what I feel inside. This thing I can't deny, I feel paradise. It feels so good to be alive, just you and me tonight. To wake me up from this high, what a beautiful life. I heard your heart call mine, and then all the stars aligned. To wake me up from this high, what a beautiful life. Beautiful life. What a beautiful life. What a beautiful life. What a beautiful life. Beautiful. What a beautiful life. Just you and me tonight. Let me up from this high. What a beautiful life. I heard your heart call mine, and then all the stars a beautiful life.
That was amazing. Absolutely amazing. You know, she has such energy, such energy. Like, also, she runs marathons and a very spiritual life as well. So it's a wonderful combination. So now Manju's going to talk with us and tell us some more about her happiness.
Let's have a few seconds of silence so I can catch my breath, and then I'll just share a little bit about my journey with the happiness and what keeps me happy so far. So, in this life, I think I have been born with a probably a blessing of happiness. Um, it's been extremely important for me to maintain my happiness. And when Sister Sally asked me to do this talk and she said, "Hey, why don't you share about your happiness?" I was like, yes, that's very easy because I believe happiness is just the essence and purpose of my life. And I feel I'm not alive if I'm not happy. So the body may be functioning very well. I can still, like all the organs of the body are perfectly fine and they are performing as they should be probably. But the real me, I, the soul, I'm actually not functioning if there is some fluctuation in my happiness. So um, I would like to share, I think, certain aspects that have kept me very happy in this life. And starting with, so I have a list of total 7 points. And starting with, like, we have a countdown. So starting with probably the base level, what I think in my understanding is important to maintain my happiness, and going towards the most important aspect. So the number one that has been important for me and something that I have I think held on to my into my life for a very long time, or probably for the most part, is self-love. So number one basis of my happiness is self-love, and also self-respect. And I think that combination is something that is, in my understanding, is the foundation of my happiness. So even when I was a little child, I would always say that it's like I love myself immensely, and that does come from the deep self-respect that I have for myself, and also the part that I'm playing in this world. I do acknowledge that there are lots of things that I need to work on myself and maybe empower more and strengthen more and maybe imbibe more qualities. But at the same time, I do acknowledge that the part that I already have and what I've been gifted in this life, I just have immense love for myself. And I've also had those moments when I have probably not had the same extent of self love. And it has taught me that those were probably just the hardest moments for me. Not loving myself is just probably the hardest that I find. So for me, the foundation of maintaining this happiness is that self-love and deep self-respect. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect, but it does mean that I acknowledge that I accept the current version of me, and I'm ready to work on the bestest possible version of myself. So that was number one. And number two is gratitude. I feel cherishing every moment of my life, every tiny thing, from seeing a bird in the sky to just a rose, beautiful rose along the runs that I do in the morning. I just feel so much happiness and gratitude for everything I'm receiving. And I feel gratitude is one thing that while you're appreciating something that is in front of me in that moment, but it also kind of attracts a lot of good things for the future. So it just becomes a life appreciating and enjoying and living fully in the present. So that's the number two. And number three has been carefree. So being carefree doesn't really mean being careless. It just means that while I'm on this journey of life, I appreciate and accept that part. But while I have my own aims and aspiration, I do acknowledge that others around me may not be able to fully accept it. And it might be different opinions and not acceptance of me. Um, but I think I really like to focus on what my aspirations are rather than others' opinions around me. And that keeps me quite carefree of those judgments or opinions. And then it keeps me away from, I guess, taking the pressure in not so nice way. So advices, suggestions are always, I always welcome them and I hold them close. Even if not in this moment, I'm sure they're going to be very helpful for me in the future. But I don't want to take it to the extent where it just takes away my happiness and I'm just too reliant on others' opinion of me. So that's number three of what keeps me happy. Just being carefree, not careless, and kind of respecting my own my or respecting my own belief system as well. So it's not, I'm not standing on a shaky ground that anybody who comes around me says something about me and I just feel too impacted by it. And then we go to number four, which has been learning. Because since I was a young kid, I always loved my studies. I always wanted to come number one in everything I do, and I think I still hold it now. But I realized that once I had done my basic education, my master's, and after that, I felt I was kind of dwelling a lot on waste because life had become comfortable. I had a settled job, and everything else that I needed to do in life was settled, and just the smaller things were becoming big. And I realized that's the reason for me was that I stopped learning. And then since that realization, I started making short term goals. I am personally a short term goal person. So I take a goal for either a new learning or a new education or maybe a language learning or some focus on my health. So I take my fitness goals and I do that for 3 months. And that really works for me because for that time, I am just so focused on those dreams or those learnings that it keeps my brain very active in the right way. And even though there are things happening sometimes in the professional life or other aspects of life, I just feel that my focus on those other things is not that much. And I have just used my energy to channelize into my learning. So I feel learning is very important for a human being because our intellects and brains have just such a huge potential. So even if I may have attained the degrees that I needed to have a good job, but that constant learning, maybe of a dance form or of a different sport, of a language, it just keeps my intellect on track. So I'm not spending time on to wasteful matters. And even if there are things maybe upsetting or hurting things that come along the way, I'm like, nah, you know what? This is not a matter of focus and not worth my time. It's like my time is very valuable and I have a limited number of hours in a day, and I do have a very active sports life and a spiritual life and a professional life to manage. So, in trying to maintain a balance between the three, I have hardly a hardly even few minutes to think about anything waste. So, just keeps all my energies very focused and yes, keeps me away from waste and keep me away from all this sadness and unnecessary things that come along the way. So next is number five. Um, Number five is about transforming myself. So while I'm acknowledging my parts, I do acknowledge that there are various things that I need to work on myself. I think and that probably is associated with self respect and self love. I always have been very gentle on myself for the most part of this life. And I want to transform myself, but not force myself. So even when there are situations when I acknowledge that I have to change myself in a particular way, but I don't want to be holding a stick in my hand and keep beating myself. I love myself, so I just like to be very gentle. And sometimes it's a very slow journey towards transformation, but I'm okay with that. But I'm not okay with that myself holding a stick and beating myself, because I think that's very harsh to myself and I don't want to do it. So I want to maintain my happiness, and I just like to be gentle on myself. But in saying that, it doesn't mean that I'm not hardworking. Like I'm extremely hardworking person in my life, but I just want to do all of that hard work and teach myself really gently, as one would teach a little child. So you tell them maybe every day, every now and then, but with a lot of love. So when that love and gentleness is kind of mixed in that journey of transformation, I feel that my transformation is long lasting rather than just giving a stick, changing for, I don't know, 5 days, and then going back to the same old patterns. So I really enjoy actually being extremely, extremely gentle on myself. And I've seen that in my interactions, that also allows me to be gentle with others, to be more forgiving than I don't know if I need to be or can be. But because I'm gentle with my own self, it allows me to be gentle with others around me. And when I'm not gentle with myself, I probably tend to be very harsh with others around me too. So, as they say that all the greatness comes from, or all the good things must start from home. So when I'm gentle with myself, that allows me to be gentle with everyone around me too. So the next one is believing in myself but holding the hand of the Supreme. And this is important for me because as human beings, we all go through the fluctuations of life and ups and downs. But I feel the Supreme is the one who is just unaffected by all this. He's just one being that is full of energy, full of happiness, doesn't have mood swings, always has all the time. And I especially share a connection with him as my father. So it's like, so my dad is super dad and God is my dad. So he has all the time in the world for me. He is full of energy. So even if on the days when I lack a little less, or maybe I don't have that 100% happiness, maybe it's 50%, but I just always know that I can hold his hand and I can tell him that, hey, I think I need a happy recharge, like we do off the phone, mobile phones. So I feel the divine's company just keeps me so protected that even in the middle of slight fluctuations or maybe slight upsetness, I just always know how to come back. So I don't want to spend time on, or I don't actually enjoy spend time in just dwelling on the same thing and dissecting the situation even further, wasting more time and energy. But it's like, okay, cool. I don't really want to look at what others are doing towards me, even if it's genuinely something very wrong or something very upsetting. I just tell him, it's like, fix me, empower me, and then I know I'll be fine. And that also has been the journey this year, that I can actually say that I'm dedicating this year to my self transformation and self healing. And from that healing, I just come in a space where nothing and no one actually bothers me. And I'm happy. And then, even if there are things happening around, I'm fine. It's okay. Everybody has their part to play in the war. But I hold his hand so tightly. So I, I don't allow myself to fall. And in my fun times with the divine, I tell him, it's like, you may be the bestest, but I'm the happiest. So that's That's actually nearly the topmost reason that I can maintain my happiness, because how we have all these pick me up kind of things, but divine is my ultimate pick me up. I have no problem knowing that I have his company, no matter what the situation is. It's like I can always come up, and it's just wonderful. And sometimes in meditation, I just have all these fun times with the divine when it's like, hey, you're a point of light, I'm a point of light, and together we're going to have a good time. And that's all my meditation is. Just really enjoying that company, and constant and stable company, because I may go through fluctuations, but he's stable. So in his amazing and stable company, I'm stabilized too. And here comes the number one. So number one point for me in maintaining my happiness is making happiness my number one priority. And it's what I really realized in this life is that it's not up to someone else, anybody external to me, course, family, friends, or anyone. It's just up to me to maintain my happiness. And when I'm really determined to actually make happiness my priority, there are actually more fluctuation at times, more number of situations that would try to take me down. But it's like happiness is my number one priority. I don't want to achieve anything or be anywhere or do anything by losing it. And someone really wise that I know on this earth once mentioned that the biggest spiritual wisdom is to take full ownership of how you feel. And happiness, something like that, because it's very easy to say, hey, someone did this, so it's okay to be sad. Where in that situation, am I really allowing my own treasure to just go down just because someone did something? Or am I really determined to make sure that nothing, no matter what happens, I'm going to make sure that I maintain my happiness? Um, and one of the things that works for me is ensuring the first thought when I wake up in the morning is of extreme happiness. And what I've seen is that if I ensure that that thought or the first few minutes of my morning are filled with amazing gratitude or happiness or good determination to attain something in the day, then it's like I've already won half the battle, and then rest of the day is much easier. But if I did not have that powerful thought in the morning, then it is quite a laboring task, or a task of a lot of hard work to be able to maintain my happiness. So sometimes I just write something on a whiteboard and say something like, tomorrow my day is going to be amazing and everything is going to be really good with me. And because I create that thought in the first few minutes of my waking up, it just kind of creates so much happiness in the morning time itself. And then the rest of the day is cakewalk. And even if the testing situations come, it just kind of doesn't matter, because I've already set the foundation of my morning very strong. And another thing is the meditation and the connection with the divine I have in the morning. So that's another part of kind of setting my mornings. If Supreme is the first person that I meet in my morning, it's like rest of the day is going to be amazing. And having that thought in the morning is just like, I think not just even 50%, I feel 60% of the day is already set. And just kind of enjoying again, even when situations come with challenge their happiness, they're like, no, you know what, I'm gonna be okay. And this situation is gonna be turn out to be very, very good for me. Even if it's not beneficial in this moment, but with the power of my thought, I can actually change it. So I just love that experimentation of the power of mind and the power of thoughts, especially in the early morning, and then actually see the impact rest of the day, how it turns around my day, as opposed to other days when I don't set that foundation very strong. So yes, that's all my, I think, experiences of this life, and all the ways that I keep myself super happy. Thank you. Om Shanti. So we were just looking for Mike for Sally.
So that was so nice, Sister Ji. You was talking about the happiness and
how you keep yourself very happy.
Thank you.
But just one thing, the question is, uh, in the whole your talk, you was talking more and more about Supreme,
Yeah.
and the image or understanding of Supreme is like very, very big or creator or something very big. But you said, "Oh, we both of us have a nice time with together." It's just like you're talking like your friend or a very close friend. How you can we can bring that or make that big relation with him, which I can feel very close to my heart, which we can see in your talk or your life. But how can you please share some tips how we can create that relation with him and be more happy?
So I think in any connection, and even if it was with my own family members or best friend, normally what we do is that we have a lot of exchange of conversations, and we create time for each other, and that's how a relationship builds. So for me, it's like I have kind of my priorities in that matter, just like very solid. So I do start my day with my meeting with Divine, and I also close my day with my meeting with Divine. And I also write a letter to him every night in which I share everything about my day, even the things that did not go well or the things that did go well, or maybe my aspirations for the next day. So those are certain techniques because in all those matters, I'm actually taking out time to connect with him. I can't increase my bonding with someone if I'm not actually spending time with them. So I ensure that these things are unaffected by the business of my life. And it's like when my day has started with the best being in the universe and it's closing with the best being in the universe, then everything else kind of falls into place. And even if during the day, what I like to do is that I keep a time tracker also sometimes to increase my meditation. So every hour for a minute, I try to take a stop and just make a connection with him and recharge myself. And when it happens every hour during the day, you can imagine it's almost like messaging your best friend every hour and chatting with them, or telling your mom about maybe something that didn't go well. So in my case, whatever it is, good or bad, any type of situation, I'm just constantly sharing with him. It's like, hey dad, this happened. It's like, hey dad, something nice happened. So I was 10 when I lost my father. So for a very long period of this time, my connection with Supreme is of that of a father and child, and I really enjoy it. So for me, it's like when you have a physical father, they may or may not be present with you all the time. But for me, my connection with Supreme just gives me a way to have my father with me all the time, and I'm just his protected little child. I'm just constantly talking to him at times, like, Daddy, this happened. And I proudly tell my friends, like, God is my dad. I just, yeah, just constant sharings with him and spending time with him morning and evening and during the day. It just keeps me connected, and that helps the relationship build over time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Thank you, Sally.
And Manju has a sparkle that even if you were sad and you came up to her, you'd feel happy. Such a beautiful sparkle.
Thank you, Sally.
And we're all actors on this stage, and I'm very grateful to have met such an actor that can really cheer me up just by hearing her voice or watching her dance. So, anytime, because these talks are now online that you can watch them at any time. So, anytime you're feeling a little bit sad, come to Manju and her dad. Between them both, they'll make you feel alive.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
so
lot.
much.